microphone? Want to check? Cool. Yeah, hello. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm happy to see some faces. That's good. My name is Tobias Geier. I work for Vector Informatik based here in Stuttgart. And today I'll talk about how I learned to test without sleep. Now, I want to break down that title in 3 parts. First of all, this is about how I learned to test without sleep, which means that's my personal experience report. Some of that stuff may apply for your context, other stuff may not apply, but that's the things that I found out. Then, what about testing? Everybody loves definitions, so here's a definition of testing that I like a lot, and I'm going to read it. Testing is the process of evaluating a product by learning about it through exploration and experimentation, which includes questioning, study, modeling, observation and inference, output checking, etc. It's by Michael Bolton and James Bach. Now, this sounds like you need to be really wide awake to do that. You need a lot of brain power to be able to do all these things. Now, why would any sane person want to do that without sleep? Well, here's the story. A typical night for me looks like that. I have a little 3-year-old son. He goes to bed around 8 p.m. Then I've got 2 hours of free time, more or less. And my head hits the pillow around between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. usually. We have a baby monitor on the nightstand so we can hear when something's wrong. I fall asleep. And all of a sudden there's this little voice, Papa, Papa. Reflexively, my hand hits the alarm clock, the light comes up, and it's 11:30. Okay, I go over to his room. Turns out his plush toy fell out of bed. Yeah, of course we can't have that, so I put it back in, soothe him, calm him down, he falls back asleep. I go back to my bed, my head hits the pillow, I fall asleep. Until all of a sudden, there's this little voice. Papa, Papa. Oh, 1:05, we made it to the next day. It's good. Okay, this time actually he fell out of the bed. It's not very high, so he didn't hurt himself, but I understand the problem. So I put him back into bed, calm him down, go back to bed, my own bed, fall asleep. Until all of a sudden there's this little voice in my head. Papa, it's 2:45. We're getting there. This time it's Thursday. Okay, I get a glass of water, he drinks a bit, he comes down, he falls back asleep. I go back to my bed, fall asleep as well. I guess you know what's coming. Papa. It's 4:88 in the morning. So I go over to his room at 4:88? Whoa, that's going to be a bad day. That's going to be one of those zombie days where I sit at my desk not really having a functioning brain and not knowing what to do. So that's why I sometimes test without sleep. Now the obvious solution to that is just drink more coffee. Thanks. No, kidding. This doesn't scale infinitely. You can only drink so much coffee. At least I can't take infinite amounts of coffee. I've tried it. So other solutions are needed. The basic assumption here is that I'm sitting at my desk having not slept at all or slept very little, my brain's not fully there, but I still want to help my team. I still want to support my team with testing and helping them get quality software out. So what can I do? Well, first of all, preparation. Contrary to popular belief, it's not the stork that brings the children. So you usually have a kind of warning period that your life will change. That gives you time to prepare. Now, other reasons to not sleep at all, that's a story a coworker told me, is the latest Walking Dead DVD came out. She had to watch all of it during the night. Yeah, but you know the release dates beforehand, right? So you can prepare for not having slept. One of the ways to prepare is by building muscle memory. Now, brilliant, my animations are not working. Okay, let's ignore that. So muscle memory. Muscle memory is a term that comes from the martial arts and self-defense classes. And it basically means that your body, your muscles react to an input without your brain being consciously involved. A simple example is somebody pushing you. If somebody pushes you, you just take a step back, and you're not falling down on the floor. I mean, you fell down on the floor a few times, probably as a kid, but your body learned, if somebody pushes me, I take a step back, I'm fine. So the same thing works with muscle memory, with testing. You can build muscle memory for testing. An example. I've been testing a feature in our application, and this dialog came up. I can duplicate stuff, and it tells me that I can enter a number either equal to or greater than 1. Now, whenever I know what's wrong. Sorry, give me a second. That's good. Okay, so let's hope this works now. Whenever I encounter a dialogue like this, there are things I have to try out immediately, without thinking, without writing down test cases. It's a few things that pop into my head that I just have to try out. Of course, boundary values. Minimum and maximum values. I mean, it says that the number must be 1 or bigger, but let's find out. What is bigger? What's the maximum value I can enter here? I just have to try out. Floating point numbers. It doesn't say that these have to be even or full numbers. What happens if I enter 1.5? Now, negative numbers. Yes, they are officially forbidden, but I don't trust software, so I try it out. Next thing, scientific notation. 1E5, what happens there? It's a number. Regular text, because why not? I'm supposed to enter numbers, but let's try ABC, see what happens then. And while we're at it, since I'm not exactly sure which kind of backend we're having here, let's try some nice SQL injection, just for the fun of it. And at the end, let's just try enter nothing at all. See what happens then. OK. Well, that looks like a winner. And guess what? We found our first bug. That's what I mean with muscle memory. I didn't do a full analysis of the features or the requirements. I just had to do this. Now, how can you build up muscle memory? For some people, that's natural. Others need exercise. And there are 3 ways I found to build up muscle memory. The first one is a nice website called testingchallenges.org. It's a wiki run by Markus Gärtner, and it just collects testing challenges from all over the world. Things that people wrote in blogs, that happened at conferences, whatever. And what I like a lot about it is it's a wide variety of challenges, and it's stuff that usually takes you out of your comfort zone. I'm testing software all day long. There's a challenge up there called Beam Me Up. The idea behind this challenge is that you're working for a company that's building a teleport. And the developers tell you the teleport has been finished. The big client's coming in next week, and luckily your budget is a gazillion space credits, so money's not the issue. So how do you test that? That's not a question many of us will be faced during regular office hours, but it's a great way to try out, work on your testing and come up with testing ideas. Since that's a blog post, there's also the answers from everybody else in there that you can read and the ideas other people came up with. So that's a great way to just work on your testing skills. Then, if you'd rather do this together with other people, there's the weekend testing. Originally started out in India, and it's a Skype group chat. So it happens on the weekends, as the name says. You get together for 2 hours in a group chat. It's totally informal. There's one guy running the exercises, but that's about it. You get an exercise you have to do in 1 hour, and then there's a 1-hour debrief where everybody shares their findings. Sometimes the exercises force you to pair with somebody. You have to test software you've never seen before. And what I like a lot about that is the debrief part. You really learn from others. You see what others did. And you also share yourself. And since it's happening on Skype, you have all the people there already, and you can just make up Skype connections and stay in touch with people. So that's weekend testing. One more thing that's a bit short notice, but the Software Testing World Cup is happening. who cares about soccer, right? Software Testing World Cup, that's where it's at. It's a contest, a worldwide contest, as the name says, with continental preliminaries. And the software testing, what they call it, European Cup, happens next week on Tuesday, Monday, next week on Monday. The registrations are still open. Find 3 more people to form a team of 4, register for the Software Testing World Cup. There's a 3-hour period where you have to test some piece of software and you have to hand in a report. There will be judges and they will determine a software testing European champion team. And this will happen for all the continents. And then in 2016, all the continental winners will get together at the Agile Testing Days and compete against each other to determine the best software testing team in the world. This happened already last year. I was a part of that. It was great fun. It's a really big learning opportunity. And I mean, how often do you get the chance to call yourself the best software testers in the world, right? So sign up. If you're not from Europe, the other continental rounds are happening next year. So just check it out. Now this is stuff to prepare yourself. Maybe you didn't have time to prepare yourself. Maybe you did the best you could, but still you're sitting at your desk, brain not working, haven't slept all night. There's something you have to test. How can you do it? Now, remember school times. What I did at school, I mean, I didn't, of course, but what people did at school is write cheat sheets. Now, when I went to school, I still had to copy all that stuff from books and my notes and write it down really, really small and end up not using it in exams anyway. But cheat sheets are still around, and the great thing is today we have the internet and we can just Google for stuff and we can just download stuff. Like, for example, the Test Heuristics cheat sheet by Elizabeth Hendrickson, Dale Emery, and James Lindsay. It's a PDF document. Google it, download it for free, and it's a brilliant collection of just stuff you can test, things you can look at, grouped into categories. And whenever you want to test a software and you don't have any ideas what to do, look at that list. It might give you some ideas. It might especially give you ideas of stuff you haven't tested for a long time. So when I first picked out that list with the latest software I'm testing, I looked through it and it says somewhere here, test files on remote machines. I had never tested that. Turned out that was a really good idea to test it. Because people use it, or at least people try to use it. They only can partially, because it's broken in quite some ways. So this is a nice way of getting just ideas, stuff you can look at, all kinds of things. Now this is a good starting point. Hopefully, you will not be sleep deprived all the time at work. So what you should do when your brain is up there and you're feeling fit and up to the task, extend it or redact it, adapt it to your needs. Because I'm sure this is a starting point, but your context or your application may feature certain things that you looked at in the past and that you should look again maybe later. To not forget it, put it up on that list. And once you have such a list, also share it. Share it around to everybody developing the software. Because, I mean, it's great to be the one telling everybody, hey, I found like 500 bugs with remote files on other machines, and the app broke in all mysterious ways. But it's even better to share that beforehand so that the developers can look at it and say, okay, I'm developing a feature with files. I should probably test remote files beforehand so that defects don't just appear in the software. You get them out in the first place. Then there's another very nice cheat sheet called the Web Application Security Testing Cheat Sheet from the Open Web Application Security Project. I think the name's a bit misleading because this applies to all applications, not just web applications. Yes, there's lots of stuff in there about web applications, but there's also categories like authentication, cryptography, things that apply to many more applications relate to security and not just web applications. So that's another great resource of just getting test ideas. And then there's mnemonics. So your brain might not be up to the full task, but you may be able to remember a few things. And the shorter the words, the better. So if you're testing mobile applications, you might just be able to remember Paco. It's kind of like, sounds like a Spanish guy as a mobile app, Spanish guy, Paco, okay. What's Paco about? Paco is a mnemonic for Portrait Audio Communication Overlay. Things you should look at when testing a mobile application. Portrait landscape orientation, how does the app behave? Audio, if your application is dealing with audio, what happens if there's a call already in progress? What happens if another application is playing audio while yours tries to play it? My personal favorite, communication. How does the app behave over hotel Wi-Fi when stepping into the elevator and the connectivity drops while it's trying to download stuff? And overlays, of course, other apps overlaying their data over your app. How does that work? Just remember Paco and you'll have a few things to look at. Another one is SF Depot, San Francisco Depot. That's pointers of things you can look at in applications, the structure of the application, the functions, the data integrations, all kinds of things that you can focus at, that you can look into. Once again, the idea is to just give your brain a little kick and hopefully then come up with ideas and things to test. And one I couldn't leave out, Kit tested, applies in my context. This is a mnemonic for test setup. Do you know the customers? Do you have all the information you need? How are your developer relations? Does the developer team like you or not? Are they withholding information? Should you maybe bring sweets? Should they bring you sweets? What's going on there? How's the trust in the team? Do you have all the equipment you need? And so on and so forth. So yeah, mnemonics, great way to come up with testing ideas and things. Then, I guess most of us use any kind of bug tracker. Personally, I've used things from Post-its to nice web applications to rich client applications that look like they were done in the 80s and never updated, which is unfortunately what I'm using right now. Anybody know ClearQuest? It's a joy. But still, it's a nice collection of things that went wrong in the past. The easiest thing you can do is you found a defect once. Ideally, you have a detailed list of steps to reproduce that defect. Somebody fixed it. First order of the day is make sure it does not only work on the developer's machine, but also on your machine. So just follow those steps. You should be able to do that even if you haven't slept. But then again, also those steps are a great starting point. Okay, so those steps failed once. How can I vary them? Maybe if I change the data I'm using, maybe if I'm able to change the order of the steps, I might find new interesting things, stuff happening there. So that's the detailed view of looking at single defects. Another way is just look at the latest 50 defects that are in the system. If you read all of them, you might get an idea of areas which are a bit more brittle than others, areas where stuff tends to break. Maybe there's a developer implementing features that also only gets 2 hours of sleep per night, and that's why stuff's breaking all the time. But that gives you pointers where you can look at maybe parts of the software you can focus on. So now these are the ways that I came up with how to cope with that state of not having slept, sitting at your desk like a zombie. But there's also ways of exploiting this state. If I may please have your attention on the slides for a second. Which button do you have to press to cancel? Anybody? Okay. What the hell? I mean, I've got an OK button, I've got a cancel button. Why do I have to press OK to cancel? Usability testing. If you haven't had enough sleep, stuff like that might trip you up. And you might just press the wrong button and then say, what happened now? Now the thing is, the users of the software we're working on, they're not always sitting in front of the software, being fully focused, nothing else going on. No, they're sitting at their desk, the phone's ringing all the time, other coworkers are chatting over the latest football results, people are coming in and out, their emails are coming in. They're constantly distracted. Now, this constantly distracted state and that dialogue, that don't mix well. So have a look at the usability. Are your texts correct? Are they easy to understand? And the problem is, since we're working on the software all day long, we know how things work. We know which button to press without even reading the text. But if we're not fully awake, if we're not fully there, we might just press the wrong button because we started to read the text and got confused. So that's usability testing. I think that's really important to do for all the software we're developing. Being not fully awake is a great way to do proper usability testing, even though you know the software really well. There's another way to do this, and there's a nice little story I'd like to tell. When I was still living in Hamburg, they have this thing called Stadtrat, which they have in lots of German cities, where there's just bike stands all over the city, and you have a mobile app, and you walk up to a bike stand, you rent a bike, drive it to the next bike stand, return it, and you get billed for the time it took. So a coworker of mine on a Friday night went out, had a few drinks, maybe a few more, wanted to go home in the wee hours of morning. So he got out the Stadtrat app, wanted to unlock a bike, did so, walked to the bike stand, there's no unlocked bike. Maybe he pressed the wrong button, he did it again, this time it worked. Took the bike, drove it home, locked it again, so the bike's returned, everything's fine. Goes up to his flat, falls asleep. Some 12 hours later, he wakes up again. Stadtrat app is still open on his mobile phone. He looks at it and it says, yeah, you've rented a bike for the last 14 hours. What the heck? He looks into details and it turns out that he managed to rent out a bike in Frankfurt, a few hundred kilometers away. Now, he was lucky. He called up the customer support. The bike had not been picked up, so they could remotely return it. He wasn't even billed for that. But why did the app even allow him, especially on a Friday night, to rent a bike a few hundred kilometers away from his current position? We're talking about mobile apps here. Mobile phones know where they are. They have the current user's location, and if not, they could ask for it, especially on Friday nights. Now, this is a use case you probably wouldn't have tested while sitting at your desk, right? You wouldn't have come up with the idea that somebody would try to rent a bike in a different city, not being able to claim it. Bike waiting there for somebody else to pick it up and throw it in the river, and then the person who rented it out has to bill a huge insurance fee or something like that. Disclaimer, please don't walk around and say, Tobias told us to get drunk at work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, while you're drunk, test your apps. Something else you can do is reviews. Now, at Vector, we have these nice requirements, documents, and all kinds of documents. And a document is a way of one person trying to express his thoughts in written manner for somebody else to understand and turn them back into thoughts. And there's bound to, some friction will happen. There will be some misunderstandings. Now, if you're not fully awake and you're doing a document review, and you don't have any questions, you understand everything, chances are high that the two people who are trying to communicate via this document will get to the same understanding. What's probably going to happen is that you'll have lots of questions, lots of stuff you don't understand that's not exactly clear, or you think there's a misunderstanding waiting to happen. Make notes, write it all down, read the whole document, do all those review notes. Now, don't start to run to the people writing the document with those notes right away. Let them rest. Next day, come back again, read through your questions again, make sure they're coherent. Make sure you actually want to ask those questions, and then ask the person. It will improve the document. It will probably prevent tons of bugs from happening. And yeah, it make everybody's life a bit better. How am I doing by the time, by the way? I hope I'm okay.
10 minutes.
Sorry?
10 minutes.
Okay. So these are the things that I found out that help me to still deliver value with testing to my teams. then again, they only get you so far. And in the end, what I found, what really, really helps, just get some sleep. If that means crashing on the floor, on the living room floor of your in-laws while you're supposed to play with your son, so be it. That's not a fake picture, by the way. My lovely wife took it. Get some sleep, come back the next day, do testing. Thank you very much for your attention. Please rate this talk. Questions? Anybody? Everybody asleep? Yeah?
Is there a location where we can find all the links provided and so on, and the sheet sheets?
I'll post the slides, I think, later. And when it comes to the cheat sheets, I had the Google terms at the bottom. Yeah, I think the links are really small print, but yeah, they'll be there. Yeah.
I have a suggestion. I don't know if you heard it, but there's actually people offering drunk usability testing as a service. So if
Are they hiring? Are they hiring?
But if you can't drink at your job while you're doing testing, maybe you can outsource it and support your local startup.
Great suggestion. Yeah, that's people doing that. Yeah. I might get into that, by the way. Instead of drunken, just sleep-deprived usability testing. Might be a niche. But yeah, thanks. Okay.
I have a suggestion, one more thing when you're saying with the reviews. I don't do this when I'm tired, but when people, having developers trying to explain to me what they're doing, usually if they can explain it to me in terms I'll understand, then that's a good thing. And if they can explain it in terms to me that I'll understand when I'm sleepy, then that's usually when they say, wait a second. And then you don't even have to test it because they realize they need to work on it a while.
True. Okay. Thanks again.